Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm pleased, as always, to be joined by Dr. Lawrence Lowe, Peel's Medical Officer of Health. Before I give my COVID update, I first want to talk about the exciting virtual Black History Month celebration I'll be hosting on February 24th from 6 to 8 p.m., along with members of the Black Caucus. The event will feature a phenomenal lineup of speakers, updates on Mississauga's equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives, and outstanding musical performances from our own local talent. It's open to everyone, and I'm really looking forward to seeing many of you there. And I highly encourage you to brush up on your Black history before the event, as there will be a trivia contest with some great prizes. Please look out on my social channels for more information on how to RSVP. Throughout February, our clock tower will also be lit in the colors of the Pan-African flag to recognize the significant contributions the Black community has made to the city of Mississauga. I highly encourage residents to take the time to immerse themselves in the rich culture, heritage, and history of Black Canadians. One of the things I recently did was learn about the history of Black settlements in our community on Heritage Mississauga's website. Some of the earliest Black families who came to this area in the mid to late 1800s, who now have relatives living all across the GTA and the entire country. It really is a wonderful resource, and I encourage residents to check it out if they can. I'd also like to briefly give you an update on the actions we're taking in light of the serious allegations made by a now former councillor about bullying, harassment, and vandalism by a current city councillor, Ron Starr. I first want to reiterate that this type of behavior has no place at City Hall or in any workplace. It must be condemned. We have started the process of getting the answers that Karen deserves so that a situation like this never happens again. Yesterday, we held a special council meeting to make necessary changes to strengthen our councillor code of conduct. The changes clarified that even if police are investigating the conduct of a councillor, the city's integrity commissioner is still obliged to investigate if a complaint on the same matter is made and once the criminal investigation is closed. This is important because our integrity commissioner initially declined to investigate the complaint made by Karen Rass because police were already investigating it. The change we made ensures that this will never happen again. My thanks to Councillor Pat Sato for drafting and moving the motion, and to Council for supporting it unanimously. Council also heard from our Integrity Commissioner, Robert Swayze, who assured Council that an investigation into this matter is already underway and a report back to Council and the public will be made in the weeks to come. My goal now, and I believe the goal of our Council, is to get to the bottom of this, get the justice Karen deserves, and move on with the business of governing this city. And now for my COVID update. Mississauga, my optimism is growing each and every day. And that's because we continue to make significant gains in our battle against Omicron. This week, our positivity rate declined once again, but the biggest improvement we've seen is at our hospitals. About a month ago, Trillium was dealing with more than 300 COVID-19 hospitalizations, well over 30 patients in the ICU, and close to 400 staff members off because of illness or isolating due to exposure. This week, Trillium has just over 100 hospitalizations and 10 patients in the ICU and less than 50 staff off. This is a huge turnaround, and I know it comes as a significant relief to many people in our community. Trillium is, however, still facing pressure and needs time to recover. And that's because over the course of this pandemic, no other hospital in the province has seen more COVID-19 patients. That means that other hospitals will be able to bring back services back online and deal with the backlog of non-urgent surgeries faster than Trillium can. I know this is hard for many people in our community who are waiting for a surgery date. I want to again thank our community for their patience and support for all of our healthcare workers. Our healthcare heroes have shown an incredible amount of determination, sacrifice, and perseverance, not only this past month, but throughout the entire pandemic. We will never forget what you have done for our community, and we thank you. Like many, I'm looking forward to seeing our business community continue to reopen in the coming weeks as we further wind back the restrictions. While we all want to go back to life as normal as soon as possible, I am encouraging the province to continue its cautious approach. I think we're on the right track. And what's more important than opening before or on a specific date is opening when the data and the health trends say it is safe to do so. Let's not tie ourselves to dates, but to trends. I believe the significant improvements we're seeing in case counts and hospitalizations is partially due to our gradual and careful reopening. I have advocated that this is the last lockdown on business that we should see during this pandemic. And in order to ensure that, we shouldn't rush things and put the gains that we have made at risk. I'd like to thank the Premier and Minister Elliott for making millions of rapid tests available to the public at pharmacies and grocery stores in the coming weeks. This is something I strongly advocated for. We know that rapid tests aren't perfect, but they do help people make responsible choices as it quickly shows if they are, in fact, contagious. It helps give people peace of mind as they get back to doing the things that are important to their physical and their mental health, like seeing family, going to the gym, or grabbing a bite to eat with their friends after work. And I'm also glad that Walmart dropped their policy last night of requiring customers to make a $35 purchase in order to receive a rapid test. This was the right thing to do. The progress we're seeing is also because of the incredible willingness of residents to step up and get vaccinated. We are now at 85% two-dose coverage for all residents 5 years of age and older, with nearly half of the children 5 to 11 having at least one dose. And this is great news, especially with more planned reopenings in the coming weeks. I spoke with Dr. Lowe about what would be the best message to convey to residents about how to assess personal risk and consider welcoming friends and family back into their homes. And his answer was clear and emphatic. Getting vaccinated and boosted is still the best way to drastically reduce your risk of getting really sick from COVID. It's the best way to give yourself certainty that you are doing everything you can to protect yourself and those closest to you. And it's becoming abundantly clear that for people 18 years of age and older, it's vital to get boosted as soon as you're eligible. And I'm happy that this weekend, Peel Public Health will be hosting Doses After Dark for the second consecutive Saturday. This time we're at Rockwood Mall at Dixie and Burnhamthorpe on Saturday, February 12th, from 1 p.m. to midnight. This provides people with greater choice and flexibility in their schedules, and I hope it encourages more people to get out and get their first, second, or their booster doses. I'll be there sometime later in the afternoon on Saturday, and I look forward to seeing you there. And on that note, I'll now turn it over to Dr. Lowe. Dr. Lowe, please come up to the podium for your address.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning. This week, we are seeing continuing declines of COVID-19 transmission in Mississauga and in Peel, and the situation at our local hospitals has also stabilized. Throughout this pandemic, one thing has been made clear. Working together is the only way through this human health emergency. It is what has gotten us to this point, and it will be what will help us through. The sacrifices of so many, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our business community, and all of us within the community of the region of Peel have come together to save lives and make a difference. In our early waves, it took collective action to stay apart and stay safe. That's how we broke the chains of transmission when we didn't have a vaccine. And to our credit, the dire images of overwhelmed hospitals and morgues seen elsewhere in the world were averted through our compassion and empathy for each other, especially for those who are most vulnerable in our community. Then, when the vaccine arrived, working together again made the difference. By getting vaccinated in such high numbers, we suppressed the Delta variant that had wreaked havoc on so many other places in the world. Now, we need to come together more than ever to continue to see Omicron on its way out as we continue on this path of transition in our community. While the Omicron wave may have peaked, transmission does still remain high and the threat is far from over. So for that reason, I urge all our residents as we continue to reopen, please get vaccinated and boosted without delay. 2 doses plus a booster means a significantly diminished risk of severity if one contracts Omicron. That is protection for you, but it's also protection for our community. It means that our hospitals can continue to provide care rather than being overwhelmed with severe cases of COVID-19 that could otherwise have been prevented. And as we reopen, we know our interactions with others will increase, but vaccination will turn the risk of COVID-19 from something that is uncertain and potentially catastrophic to something that is far more manageable. It takes everyone doing their part to change that risk at a community level. So today I am calling on our 600,000 residents, especially the 200,000 over 50 who are eligible for their booster. Please get boosted today. You can walk in or visit peelregion.ca/COVID-19 vaccine to book an appointment. You can come and join myself and Mayor Crombie at Mississauga's Doses After Dark at Rockwood Mall, which will be coming up this Saturday, February 12th. Or you can even go and visit Caledon, visiting their Boosters Before Bedtime, which will take place on Sunday, February 20th on Family Day weekend with extended hours till midnight at Caledon East Community Complex. Also, if you haven't got your first 2 doses yet and you're over 5, please get those without delay as well. Getting vaccinated and boosted will provide us with certainty. It will give us certainty that our usual interactions will be far less likely to result in hospitalization or death. It will give us certainty that our hospitals will be there when we need them. And it will give us certainty that our schools, our businesses, our community will continue to move forward and transition. And let me be clear, when that day comes, and it will come, where we do move forward, it will be because of the many who came together to care, to keep each other safe, to get vaccinated, to wear masks, and not the few who have sought to divide or incite hatred. So once more, let's come together and let's move forward. Please get vaccinated and boosted and keep each other safe. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to Mayor Crombie.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. While I really couldn't be happier about the huge gains we're making against Omicron, I do want to talk about the enormous financial pressure that cities, particularly those here in Ontario, who have faced the longest and most restrictive lockdowns, are facing as a result of the pandemic. Along with the transit losses, Mississauga continues to receive far fewer proceeds from Pearson Airport due to historically low passenger travel. It's important that the provincial and the federal governments recognize that cities like Mississauga aren't out of the woods yet and will need support to ensure we can continue to provide transit and keeping our economy running, to provide those services and programs that our residents are counting on. And unlike the federal and provincial governments, cities are not legally allowed to run deficits. This week, I took part in a number of meetings alongside of other big city mayors from across the country with federal ministers to talk about our shared priorities for the 2022 federal budget. And my message was clear. We need continued support from both the provincial and the federal governments for these ongoing COVID-related budget shortfalls. Without more support, cities will soon be forced to consider service reductions or reductions in capital budgets, both of which are highly detrimental to residents. A vibrant economic recovery means strong local transit systems to get people to work. Cities and regions will drive economic recovery, and it's so vital that both the provincial and federal governments commit to continuing COVID-19 relief funding for cities who continue to be heavily impacted by the pandemic. Lastly, I want to briefly touch on the report released earlier this week by the province's Housing Task Force. I first want to say that I welcome anything that advances the conversation on the housing crisis sweeping our province. With the average price of a home in Mississauga now over $1 million, and too many people, especially our young people, being priced out of the market, we need to take action on this, and quickly. We're doing a very thorough analysis of the report, and I'll be able to comment in detail in the near future. As a city, we're doing our part to address the affordability crisis. Mississauga is a leader when it comes to planning approvals. In fact, we hit our approval targets 98% of the time. We have pre-zoned 60,000 units that could be built today if developers wanted to. And we're also working to bring more middle-income affordable housing to the market through our Making Room for the Middle plan. If we're seriously going to address the housing affordability crisis, there needs to be a commitment to collaboration from all levels of government, from the development industry and the real estate sector. We all have a role to play. I strongly believe the province and the federal government have the power and the economic tools, such as taxation and spending powers. They have the fiscal firepower to make a significant dent in the cost of housing. I also believe that any new policies that are put into place must respect the autonomy of municipal governments in the planning and the development process. We know our neighborhoods and our residents best, but there is no doubt that more can be done to improve the planning process and change our mindsets when it comes to housing approvals. I urge the province to engage in meaningful conversations with municipalities before enacting any of the recommendations. And now, along with Dr. Lowe, we'll take questions from the media.
Mayor Crombie, your first question today comes from Steve Cornwell at the Mississauga News. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, Mayor Crombie. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How about you, Steve?
I'm not bad.
Good.
I'm curious why you didn't ask the City Integrity Commissioner yesterday why he did not investigate the allegations against Councillor Starr after the police decided not to pursue charges. It seemed like the special meeting called last week was primarily around getting answers on why an investigation didn't happen. So I'm curious to why you kind of didn't directly pose that to the Integrity Commissioner.
It's a fair question. Thank you, and it's a fair question. It's something we had gone into in quite a bit of detail in the in-camera session. The reason is, and I'm sure I had said so publicly yesterday, the fact that he thought there was an exemption as a result of there being it being a criminal matter and there being a police investigation. So he thought in those situations, it being a police matter, that there was an exemption to an Integrity Commissioner investigation. So we've strengthened the language in our code of conduct to ensure that that doesn't happen again, that it not be open to that interpretation, because in reality it always was eligible for investigation. Of course, he would have suspended any investigation he was doing pending the outcome of any police report or police investigation, and then continue on following. So that is the wording that we enhanced and clarified yesterday.
Just to follow up on that, I guess my question is, Jenna, is there some procedural reason why you didn't ask that question directly? And just to follow up, if I could, that is there, how do you kind of see, assuming that after the investigation is kind of through, we know that the Integrity Commissioner can recommend kind of certain penalties if they're warranted here, but how do you see kind of council coming together after this, assuming that Councillor Starr will still be in his seat until the fall?
Right. So let me just comment that I think the motion spoke directly to the fact that the Integrity Commissioner felt that there was an exemption that wouldn't be required in a criminal investigation by police to conduct to conduct his own investigation. So certainly the motion that was tabled, which I worked with Councillor Sato on it, as did our city solicitor, to strengthen the language to ensure that there was never subject to that interpretation again. So I think we spoke directly to that fact that, the Integrity Commissioner felt that he wasn't able to investigate because of the criminal nature of the police investigation. But we clarified that yes, you could have, and yes, you should. And in fact, when we asked him, when he came before us to make his deputation, he let us know that the investigation was already underway and that he had gotten his own advice that said you can proceed, and so he did. So we're very delighted that that is going forward, and that we will know the results in the weeks to come, not in the months to come. So that is very good news. Of course, any investigation would have to be completed by the nomination date, which is a nomination for putting your candidacy forward for the next election, May 2nd. So very delighted that this will be completed. And of course, there will be a time of healing. We don't know. I don't want to prejudge or predict the outcome of his investigation, so it would be premature for me to speculate on, bringing people together. Clearly, I also asked him, if you recall, what more we can and should do to strengthen our code and prevent future incidents of bullying and harassment. And I think that's something every workplace must be considering at this time.
Mayor Crombie, your next question comes from Natasha O'Neill at The Pointer. Go ahead, Natasha.
Good morning, Mayor Crombie.
Good morning.
I have a few questions about the Ontario Affordability Task Force.
Yep.
I'm kind of wondering, I know you haven't read it in full just yet, and I know that you guys discussed it yesterday at Council. I'm just kind of wondering what you're hoping this task force and recommendations can achieve.
So there are a couple of issues here that I think we need to clarify. So the Affordability Task Force, I'm not sure what the goal is, if it's to encourage supply into the marketplace or encourage affordable supply into the marketplace, because they're two different things. And certainly we're in the process of analyzing it. Many of the recommendations are already underway here in Mississauga, such as e-plans and leading our planning department and using all those techniques you get through Lean to make things more effective and more efficient. Reducing our parking standards, that's something we're doing already in Mississauga. Having, as of right, zoning in so many areas, including our downtown, eliminating height restrictions in our downtown, although not in, certainly not in all transit areas. So there are a number of positive initiatives that we've already undertaken, and I know that Mississauga was used as a benchmark community. But, some of the recommendations give some of the mayors a bit of indigestion. It does feel like it's a little bit of an encroachment into the local planning process. And of course, we know that municipal governments are closest to the people, and we understand our residents' needs, and we want to preserve and protect the character of our neighborhoods. So there's some of them that are concerning, including reducing the time limits for public consultation, character of neighborhoods, no mention of inclusionary zoning throughout our cities, and then the changes to the exclusionary zoning could be, quite controversial in some cities. So, there are a number, waiving the DCs in cash and lieu for parks on infill units. Well, waiving DCs significantly impacts revenues of cities, but I don't think there's a correlation to the price of the final product of the home. So this is a significant hamper to municipalities. So, legislative timelines, there are lots to think about, Natasha. So we'll be working with our planning department on putting forward a response and working with the other Ontario big city mayors on collaboration on, what are the great ideas and great recommendations in the report versus the ones that give us a little bit of concern. And we hope to work closely with the task force and with the provincial government, and in fact with all three levels of government, because initiatives like this and increasing the supply of housing, but more importantly, increasing the affordability of housing, has to be done by a collaboration of all three levels of government.
Awesome. You did touch on inclusionary zoning. I'm just kind of wondering where we're at with that process. What I know council is overwhelmingly quite positive towards it, but I'm just kind of wondering when that's going to come back.
Yeah, this is expected this spring, Natasha, to bring back that final report, and we can settle on inclusionary zoning. And you know, we do our best to negotiate on every new development with the developers, and we're really quite successful on including affordable units as part of every new development. And we are encouraging the provincial government to consider permitting inclusionary zoning as of right in areas that are not just MTSAs and municipally in transit significant areas. So, you know, it's an ongoing discussion, and that report will be coming back this spring.
Mayor Crombie, your next question comes from Declan Finnegan at Mississauga. Go ahead, Declan.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Crombie. How are you?
I'm very well, Declan. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm just wondering, have you spoken privately with former Councillor Rass since publicly apologizing to her last week? And if so, can you characterize the general nature of that discussion?
Councillor Rass and I are friends and colleagues, and I have reached out to Councillor Rass this weekend. We weren't able to connect, but I will try again now that I have more to report back. I wanted to give her a heads up on what next steps were being planned, and now that we know that the investigation is proceeding, and I'm sure she's heard it in the news herself, I want to touch base on you know, the results of the meeting yesterday. So I do plan to follow up with her. Yes.
Follow-up?
Yes, please. You mentioned, Mayor Crombie, a desire this morning to get to the bottom of this matter. Where was that desire last year? Did you not have all the information last year that you do now with respect to the scope of the alleged incidents, and that there were 8 of them and they dated back 2 years? So,
Declan, the issue is one of privacy. The councillor very much informed myself and a couple other councillors who she felt she could trust. And, you know, when you're asked to keep information in confidence, it was not for me to go to council or to the public or to other authorities and discuss it with them. She wanted, she had to plan her own reaction to these incidents and, you know, use the measures at hand to her. And of course, she immediately, whatever evidence there was turned over to the police, which made it a police investigation, which meant we had to keep things in confidence until the result of the police investigation. And when the matter was deemed resolved, then Councillor Rass appealed to the Integrity Commissioner. But at the same time, complaints to an integrity commissioner are also kept confidential. So council wasn't aware of this. I was aware that she was planning to do it, but I had no further information either. So you have to see that there is an element of privacy and confidentiality that she asked us to keep, and so we did so. And not until that she came forward with these allegations in the public, we thought what more could have been done, what more should have been done. If the integrity commissioner didn't want to hear her complaint, why not? Can we reopen it as a council? Can we strengthen the code so this doesn't happen in the future? So you have to understand that I was respecting her privacy as well. Yes, she confided in me as a friend and as a colleague, and maybe to 1 or 2 others, but we couldn't take this information to the public or to authorities. She was already doing so in her own way.
Your final question today comes from Khalid Salama at My Second Home TV. Go ahead, Khalid.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Khalid.
Mayor, I'm a little bit curious again when it comes to Mr. Starr. He paid $1,250 for the damages he made, and he was caught on camera. How come he denied, and how come everybody bought what he said?
So, Khalid, I really can't comment on that, right? You know, this is the specific evidence that I have not yet seen myself, I'm unaware of, but I do understand there is video. I do understand there's a police report, and that is the type of evidence that our integrity commissioner will be evaluating and come back with recommendation and a final judgment. So it might prejudice any investigation he's doing if I speak openly about these issues, and frankly, I have not myself seen the evidence.
I have a request, then I'll have a follow-up. A request, can you consider having, let's say, a Black Person of the Year here in Mississauga because we have lots of great black people who achieved lots of
You know,
things
it's
here.
an excellent idea. I have been often at the Harriet Jerome Awards in Toronto, and I thought that was sort of a GTA award because there have been many Mississaugans that have been honored. But that is an excellent suggestion, and I'll bring that up with my Black Caucus if it's something they want to do. Now, we don't actually select Citizens of the Year here at the city. This is an outside organization. The Mississauga News selects them based on applications made, or nominations rather, of citizens of individuals. And don't forget, Lyndon King has been who is the chair of my Black Caucus. He has been a Citizen of the Year here in Mississauga, but the city doesn't select those people. They're selected by an independent panel by the Mississauga News. It's a panel that they have, and then the Volunteers of the Year are selected by a panel of the Real Estate Board. So we don't actually select them here at the city, but it is an excellent suggestion. I'll take it up with the Black Caucus, and you'll be pleased that there have been Black community members that have won that preeminent designation previously.
Great, thank you. And my follow-up is it's a concern brought to you by many of proud Mississauga who chosen to come here and live in this lovely city. And they are concerned about intensification and abolishing of certain parking spaces and whatever.
Yeah.
It will not be our Mississauga, and this is not a solution
Right.
for the big problem.
So what you say is very true. The changes that the provincial government are recommending would change the character of neighborhoods for sure. And, you know, there's something very special about Mississauga and how we developed. And yes, we're embracing intensification and densification and gentle infill, et cetera. But these changes do change a neighborhood. Even removing the parking restriction changes a neighborhood. There'd be more on-street parking, et cetera. So this is something we need to consider as we build our city and as we plan our city, and we do that as a council. And so these recommendations made by the Affordability Task Force may be appropriate in some cities, but in Mississauga, you know, we think we know our residents best. I think we know the local planning process best, and I think the municipal government, the local government, is the best level of government to enact changes to their own communities and to enact planning process.
Mayor, that's the end of the questions for today.
Thank you for joining us today.